Good morning once again, everyone. Was taking time out to join this webinar where we would be discussing career opportunities in the field of quantitative finance, or as it is also alternatively known as in the field of financial engineering. So, as you all know, we are extremely lucky to have with us Mr. Bhatia take us through this session. Just to give a very brief background of yeah, whatever I say would be less in terms of his profile. He has such a profound experience. Mr. Bhatia actually is an investment banker. He was a derivative trader and then he turned an entrepreneur. He has also been involved with a lot of academic projects as well. Mr. Bhatia has more than 30 years of experience working in leading positions with different MNC investment banks globally in various countries and cities like New York, London, Hong Kong, Sydney, and Mumbai. So he has been with Citibank Global Asset Management London, where he was dealing with alternative investment strategies. He was managing around 10 billion funds there in collateralized debt obligations. He was with Lehman Brothers London in the Global Derivative Products Group as a derivative structurer. He was with Merrill Lynch Capital Markets Hong Kong as a country coverage officer for Indian subcontinent. He worked with Booz Allen and Hamilton in Sydney as a strategy consultant on assignments for one of the largest banks in Australia. And he has been also an interbank foreign exchange trader with Citibank at the start of his career. Mr. Bhatia, actually, as I said, he then became an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, he started his work in Financial Engineering LLC in Florida, where his work on artificial intelligence and neural network-based trading strategies resulted in the development of the neural trader system, which was the second best performing trading strategy in the world in 2004-5. Can you believe it, guys? The second best trading strategy in the world, and that resulted in the creation of a hedge fund, Delray Capital, a firm specializing in developing and trading quantitative trading strategies for the global financial markets. He is also a partner at Neural International Partners. Mr. Bhatia has wonderful academics as well. He has done his master's from Columbia University, New York, where he was the Dean's Fellow at School of International Affairs and majored in international banking and finance. He also has an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. Right. So that was a very brief profile description of Mr. Bhatia. As I said, we are extremely lucky to have him with us today. With that, I will hand over the session to Mr. Bhatia. Mr. Bhatia, thank you so much for taking time out and speaking to these guys. I hope they can take benefit out of this.
Okay, thank you very much, Nitish. And welcome to all the participants. I hope we have a very interesting. So a warm welcome to you on a Saturday morning. I hope we have a productive session. I'm going to spend about just 20-30 minutes talking about career opportunities in quantitative finance and financial engineering. And then I would love to take your questions and try my best to answer all the queries that you have. See, the good thing about quantitative finance is that there is an abundance of career opportunities, whether it's in investment banks, whether it's in hedge funds, whether it's in algorithmic trading, risk management, whether it is in other areas like software companies, consulting, energy companies, just about academia, fintech as well. So the opportunities are there. The key thing is, how do you prepare yourself for these opportunities? Because all these opportunities require very specialized and high quality skill sets. And if you acquire those high quality skill sets, you become a very desirable candidate. Now, financial engineering, it works at the intersection of many domains. And it is the application of mathematics and statistics to the study of financial markets using sophisticated computer science techniques. So we have finance and economics in the red, computer science in green, maths and statistics in blue, and financial engineering is quantitative finance is really at the intersection of all these three domains. Now, there was a time when trading actually just took place on the floors of stock exchanges. This is a snapshot from the New York Stock Exchange in the early part of the 20th century. But things have changed. Today, you know, trading on the New York Stock Exchange or on the floor of the Bombay Stock Exchange is not that important. What is more important is how do you trade using sophisticated computers. So the nature of trading has changed, and because of the change in the nature of trading, there is a growing demand for those who have the skill sets in quantitative finance and financial engineering. Here we have Professor Zvi Bodhi of Boston University. Now, he defines financial engineering slightly differently. He calls it the application of science-based mathematical models to decisions about saving, investing, borrowing, lending, and managing risk. Now, here we have one of the most famous financial engineers in the world, a legendary person, Jim Simmons. He was the founder of Renaissance Technologies, a hedge fund based in New York, which manages over $25 billion. 2006, Dr. Simmons was named the Financial Engineer of the Year. And he has now retired, but he's still, a remarkably successful man with a net worth in excess of $14 billion. And his income, his per annum income is in the billions of dollars. And he's the number one financial engineer, a number one quantitative finance person in the world. And now he's in his 80s, and he has founded Math for America, a nonprofit organization, and the mission is to improve mathematics education in America. The interesting thing about Dr. Simmons' hedge fund, Renaissance Technologies, is that even if a guy from the Harvard Business School or Wharton or Stanford Business School applies for a job, they won't even bother to call him for an interview. But if you have a master's degree or a PhD in physics, in mathematics, in statistics, electrical engineering, or computer science, they would love to talk to you. Because their philosophy is that we really cannot teach mathematics and advanced physics to someone who has a finance background. But we can teach finance to a mathematician. We can easily teach finance to a physicist or to somebody who has a degree in electrical engineering. Now, Jim Simmons, what did he do? He's known as the Quant King. Now, retired from his $29 billion hedge fund called Renaissance Technologies. The hedge fund is highly secretive and consistently profitable. It uses a black box strategy known as medallion. And what this black box does is that it implements mathematical models using computer science to find inefficiencies in highly liquid securities. Now, Dr. Simmons is a graduate from MIT. He started his career as a theoretical mathematician and was a code breaker for the United States Department of Defense. He later on headed the mathematics department at the State University of New York at Stony Brook. And today he has contributed more than $1 billion to charitable causes like Math for America and autism research. Now, who are financial engineers? What do we do? We apply mathematical formulas using computer programming to financial strategies, to analyze market trends, and we build data-backed financial models. So a lot of financial engineering or quantitative finance is highly data-driven. So the kind of work that data scientists do is also of great help and great application in quantitative finance. And companies often employ people with advanced degree in financial engineering to work as investment managers, portfolio managers, bankers, or traders to improve the quality of existing investment products. And the primary responsibility of a financial engineer is to have a very thorough knowledge of financial markets, its volatility, and knowledge of financial theories. And this knowledge is used by financial engineers and quantitative finance guys to develop simulations and to predict market behavior. Now, what kind of skill sets are required amongst folks in quantitative finance and financial engineers? One is a focus on modern finance. See, modern finance begins where traditional finance ends. And when I talk of traditional finance, I'm referring to the finance that chartered accountants do. That requires auditing, creating balance sheets, P&L statements, doing financial analysis, ratio analysis, for example. That's where traditional finance ends. Modern finance is more driven by mathematics, driven by physics and statistics and computer science. It requires knowledge of economics, and more than economics, it requires the knowledge of econometrics. Then you need computer programming skills in C++, Java, Scala, Python, or in the use of statistical packages like R, MATLAB, SAS, S+, and RAD. Then advanced mathematical knowledge of stochastic calculus and linear algebra comes in very handy. Simply also like that, advanced statistics, knowledge of multivariate probability, distributions, derivatives pricing using lattice trees, closed form solutions, and Monte Carlo simulation are also very, very helpful in the repertoire of skills that a quantitative finance or a financial engineer should have. Then skills like derivatives hedging, which include dynamic hedging, static hedging, as well as option replication strategies, come in very handy. Now, careers in quantitative finance and financial engineering are spread across the world, and they are spread across a number of different domains. You could end up working in quantitative research and analysis. You could end up working in development of quantitative and analytical software. You could be building valuation models. You could be doing model validation. You could be doing portfolio management or even portfolio analytics. And then risk management, of course, is a very, very key and important area for quantitative finance specialists. Derivative structuring, that's the job that I used to do at Lehman Brothers. Increasingly, this job is now being done out of India. High frequency trading, algorithmic trading, derivatives trading. So there's a whole wide range of areas in which you guys can actually end up working. Now, career opportunities specifically in India. See, what has happened is that major global banks, as a part of their cost-cutting spree, have been moving jobs from New York, London, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Singapore to India. And they're not moving it to Bandra Kurla complex or to Nariman Point. They're moving it to Powai, to Goregaon. They're moving it to Pune. They're moving it to Gurgaon. So major banks have opened what are called centers of excellence in India. Just to give you an example, when I graduated from IIM Ahmedabad, Deutsche Bank had only 25 people in the entire country in the Bombay office. Today, Deutsche Bank has 20,000 people working for it in North Bombay, in the Goregaon area. So what has happened is that jobs are moving towards India, and people who have the requisite skills can find valuable career opportunities first in India, and then as your career progresses, it is quite natural that you will move out to places like Singapore or Hong Kong or London or New York. Now, these COEs, which are called centers of excellence, they support global financial centers in derivative structuring, in model building, in model validation, risk management, risk reporting, and analytics. Now, here is a snapshot of the kind of jobs that are available in financial engineering in India. Now, this has been taken from iimjobs.com. It's quite unlikely that you will find good jobs in quantitative finance or financial. Taken from iimjobs.com. It's quite unlikely that you will find good jobs in quantitative finance or financial engineering on websites like Monster or Naukri.com. One place which has quite a lot of good jobs in this domain in India is actually iimjobs.com. You just have to be careful sometimes. Sometimes the headhunters are just resume collectors, and actually there is no job at the back. They just post a job because posting is free. But here are some specific examples of companies that are looking for people in this area. So the very first one is from Barclays. They're looking for an AVP in capital and risk information services. Then there's a job with Cognizant in global capital markets. Then there's a job with Prudential. There's a job with Accenture in risk management. There's some jobs with Ernst& Young, with American Express, and with Tata Capital. And there's a whole range of them. The list is pretty much endless. You'll find a variety of opportunities in a variety of areas. Most of these jobs tend to be concentrated in Bombay as well as in Bangalore, but you will also find opportunities in Gurgaon, in Pune, and even Hyderabad, Calcutta, and Chennai. So here, there's a whole range of possible jobs in risk management. This is an area of quantitative finance. And if you go to the imjobs.com website, you can take a look at some of the more recent postings over there. Now, one of the important questions that everybody wants to know is that, yes, if this is such a great domain and pays so well, what am I going to earn? Now, I have divided the firms in a tiered manner according to the most desirable firms to work for and the least desirable firms to work for at the bottom. So the bulge bracket global banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, these tend to be the most desirable places to work. They usually will pay the top drawer compensation for the best talent. But please remember that compensation is not the only important thing, the financial compensation. If you are developing tremendous intellectual capital by working at a certain organization, then that is more valuable for your future career progression than just what you're making today. Just to give you an example, when I worked for Lehman Brothers in London, my compensation was not great, but I was working with very smart people, some of the smartest people I've ever worked with. The kind of work that I was doing was excellent, very, very intellectually challenging and cutting edge. Now, when I left Lehman Brothers, I was headhunted and my salary went up 400%. So it went up like, 5 times. Now, that happened simply because my intellectual capital had gone up tremendously. And that intellectual capital ultimately gets translated into financial rewards at some point or the other. Now, amongst the second tier global banks, I've included Citigroup, Bank One, Bank of America, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, and UBS. And some of you may say that, why are these banks in the second tier? The reason is very simple. These banks copy what the bulge bracket banks do. They copy what Goldman Sachs does, what JP Morgan does. One bank whose name is missing over here is Morgan Stanley. Used to be bulge bracket at one time, is now probably second tier. Now, I know for a fact that Deutsche Bank pays 22 lakh rupees per year to fresh MBAs from the top 4 IIMs. The reason I know that is that I have actually taught these people. There were just 11 or 12 of them in a classroom at Deutsche Bank. And some of them were from my alma mater, from IIM Ahmedabad. So, over lunch, we talked to each other. And they were quite happy to disclose, what is the compensation and why they joined Deutsche Bank. So they start with 22 lakhs and then, they progress. But one thing good that I have to say about these graduates from the top 4 IIMs is that you give them the most complex work to do, or to build the most complex spreadsheet, and they crank it out in just 2 or 3 hours. And actually, they did it for me in classroom. I gave them an assignment, and for 2 hours, I heard nothing in the class except the click-click of the keyboards. So then we have these Asian banks, Japanese banks like Nomura, banks from Hong Kong, Singapore, China, banks from India, banks from Malaysia. They want to imitate the second-tier global banks. They want to be like Citigroup. They many times hire people from Citigroup as well. They don't tend to pay as well, but it could be a good starting point. There is once you acquire knowledge and experience, you don't have to necessarily stay on with the same organization. If you find that you're not being well compensated, the learning opportunity is limited. Then at the bottom of the pile, you have the IT companies, Accenture, IBM, Oracle, the global IT companies. Then we have Infosys, Pro, Cognizant, and Capgemini. They pay 6 to 9 lakh rupees for someone with 2 years experience. As your experience goes up, they pay between 10 to 15 lakhs. And then as your experience goes up to 10 years, they pay as much as 10 to 25 lakhs. Not the best of places to work, but again, sometimes there is no harm in just getting started if that's the opportunity that's available. Now let's talk about a snapshot of financial engineering jobs overseas. There is a website called eFinancial Careers. This is a snapshot which is taken today. There's jobs in Frankfurt in Germany for valuation and financial engineers. There's an opportunity for a cross-asset financial engineer in Singapore. When we talk of cross-asset, what we mean is someone who has the capability to model a variety of asset classes. Could be fixed income, could be equities, could be commodities, could be energy, could be hybrid asset classes as well, like convertible bonds. Then investment risk analysts, this is another job in Singapore. Similarly, there's a senior XVA quantitative developer at one of the top global banks. They pay almost like 700, 800 pounds per day. Again, here's a range of different jobs overseas. The good thing about finding a job overseas is that obviously it pays much better than the jobs in India. The flip side is that in many places the cost of living can be very high, and some of the places may not be the most desirable places to live in. In a place like New York, you could easily be earning $150,000 to $200,000 a year, but the cost of living is so high and the tax rates are so high that half your salary will go in taxes, and the money that you're left over with doesn't even allow much savings, despite such a high salary. Here is a snapshot of compensation for financial engineers in the USA. The lower side, a few jobs may offer as little as $50,000, but I think those are quite rare. Then there are jobs at the top end offering almost $200,000 a year. But the median salary, which is about $90,000 per annum, just keep in mind that this is not for New York. This is not for San Francisco, which are very expensive cities. This is not for Boston. These are compensation packages for the entire country. And in some places, like, a place in Oklahoma or some place inside the middle of America in the Midwest, a $90,000 salary is as good as making $200,000 in a place like New York, because the cost of living is much less. So what are the financial engineering career prospects? Now, this is coming from the New York Institute of Finance. Keep in mind one thing: the closer you are to the activities that generate revenue, the more likely you are to be paid well. So if you are a front office person, if you are the rainmaker, you are the one who creates products, you are the one who brings services, you bring in clients, you originate deals or transactions, then your bonus is going to be multiple times your base salary. So if your base salary is just $100,000 and you've done a great job in the year making significant revenues for your bank, you could be taking home $300,000, $500,000 for that year. It depends upon how much money you bring in. Middle office jobs are very important jobs. Unfortunately, despite being extremely important, they don't get paid that well. They are usually paid bonuses which are capped at 100% of base salary. So if you're making a base salary of $100,000, you probably end up with a maximum bonus of another 100,000. But the good thing about the being in the middle office is that again you learn a lot, and risk management being extremely important, you can very easily progress from the middle office to the front office. The back office, again, a very important component of the bank, but unfortunately, the banks don't see it that way, um, because the money is not being made there. So they tend to be obviously, the least paid. So with that, is my presentation. I'll be happy to take questions and answer whatever queries you have.